I overheard my daughter-in-law sharing her feelings with her friends, revealing her sense of relief at the idea of being free from my presence and implying that I should be placed in a nursing home. Yet, as I perused the will, it became clear that it was she who was tasked with collecting her possessions. A setting where goodbyes are softly spoken and echoes of the past hang in the atmosphere, filled the air with the fragrance of lilies, intertwining with a sense of loss. I lingered next to Noah's casket, my hand trembling as I gently caressed his cold cheek for the last time. My cherished son, my beloved son. How could this situation be developing in such a way? At 68, I never imagined I would endure the heart-wrenching sorrow of outliving my own child. Every parent is worthy of more than what they receive. He was snatched away from us in a heartbeat by the relentless grip of cancer. Only 3 months passed from the moment of diagnosis to the heartbreaking farewell. There just wasn't enough time to convey all that needed to be conveyed. There's always a sense of urgency when preparing for a future that feels incomplete without him. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here with us. Come along with me on this adventure until we reach the final page, and let me know where you're joining from so I can truly value the journey my tale has taken. Mrs. Harrison, would you like to have a seat? The funeral director's voice was gentle, adept at providing comfort to those grappling with their loss. I followed along, my mind swirling. As I was guided to the front row of chairs, soft murmurs floated through the atmosphere. As people approached, their tones hushed and inquisitive. My deepest condolences. The noise enveloped me, consuming all other sensations and leaving me in a world of its own. I accepted their hugs and handshakes with a feeling of distance, as if I were a marionette going through the motions of social interaction. Everything felt like a dream. How could life possibly go on in the absence of Noah? Elizabeth, my daughter-in-law of 15 years, sat beside me in a flawlessly tailored black dress, her makeup pristine, as she gently wiped away tears with a handkerchief adorned with her initials. She had once captured Noah's heart during their college years. I welcomed her into my heart, enveloping her in the affection I had always longed to share with a daughter. "I need some air," she murmured, her fingers curling around mine with a delicate intensity, before she rose with graceful composure and moved toward the rear of the room. I watched her leave, reflecting on how we could support each other through this difficult period. Noah had been our bridge, the space where we encountered one another and truly grasped each other's essence. How might our bond manifest in the present moment? A little while later, I realized I needed to find a restroom. My arthritis acted up, and I needed to take my medication. I moved through the hallway with caution, using my cane to guide my steps and maintain my balance. As I approached the inviting corner where the smokers gathered, Elizabeth's voice floated to me, remarkably bright and imbued with a sense of ease. I truly thought this day would last an eternity. A multitude of people reach out to me, offering their sympathies and asking how they might lend a hand. What steps should I take? She let out a deep, dramatic sigh. Do I truly require their casseroles and their compassion? A woman let out a soft, warm laugh. At least there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon. What happens next? Finally, I take back control of my existence. Elizabeth's voice sharpened with determination, and I finally have the opportunity to break free from that persistent annoyance. I remained frozen, my heart pounding fiercely within me. There was no way she could be alluding to, "Is that you?" "Olga," a different woman asked. "Of course, Olga." Elizabeth's voice dripped with contempt. Noah was insistent that she remain with us after. Harold has left us. She has exhausted all her choices. Liz, she's utterly alone. Liz, with Noah's departure, the facade can finally fade away. What do you intend to do with her? On the edge of town, there exists a nursing home that fulfills every required standard with care and attention. Elizabeth let out a gentle laugh, her face lighting up with a tender smile. A sound I had once deemed melodious now echoed with an unsettling sharpness. She is approaching her 70th year. It's truly her rightful place. Isn't she going to stand up against it? The first woman once more. What resources are available? The property is registered under my name. Noah and I took care of that when his father passed away. She entrusted everything to us. Don't you recall? We advised her to steer clear of probate. Elizabeth's voice fell to a playful whisper. The old woman has no idea that Noah entrusted everything to me. In just a week, she will be getting her bags ready. I clutched my cane tightly, my knuckles paling with the pressure. Leaving the bathroom behind, I slipped away quietly. My entire body trembles. How could I have been so unaware? For all this time, I believed that Elizabeth had deep feelings for me. I thought we were family. Back in the viewing room, I looked at my son's peaceful face through new eyes. Had he known how his wife really felt about me? Would he have done something differently if he had? I wiped my tears and straightened my spine. I would not let Elizabeth see me broken. Not today. Today was for Noah. The rest of the funeral passed in a blur. I accepted more condolences, spoke briefly at the service, watched as they lowered my son into the ground. Through it all, Elizabeth stayed close, her arm linked with mine, the perfect picture of a grieving wife supporting her heartbroken mother-in-law. But now I knew better. Now I heard the falseness in her voice when she said, "We'll get through this together, Olga." Now I felt the impatience in her touch as she guided me to the car. As we drove home in silence, I stared out the window at the passing scenery, wondering where I would go, what I would do. I had no money of my own, having given everything to Noah and Elizabeth years ago. No home, except the one Elizabeth now wanted me out of. But there was one thing Elizabeth didn't know, something Noah had told me during one of our last private conversations. When Elizabeth was out arranging hospice care, "Mom," he had whispered, his voice weak, but his eyes clear. "I need to tell you something important about my will." I turned to look at Elizabeth's profile as she drove, her face composed and cool. Let her think she had won. Let her make her plans. The reading of the will was scheduled for tomorrow. I couldn't sleep that night. How could I, with Elizabeth's words echoing in my head, that old shrew, finally get rid of her? The nursing home is where she belongs anyway. As I lay in the guest bedroom, never truly mine, despite living here for 5 years, memories washed over me like waves, each one more painful than the last. Now that I saw them through this new lens of betrayal, I remembered the day Harold died. 8 years ago, my husband of 40 years, gone suddenly from a heart attack. Noah and Elizabeth had come immediately, helping with the funeral arrangements, sitting with me through those first terrible nights. It was Elizabeth who had suggested I sell my house and move in with them. "Mom, it makes no sense for you to rattle around in that big house all alone," Noah had said, his arm around his wife. "We have plenty of room, and we could use the money from the sale to invest for your future." Elizabeth had added, "So you never have to worry about finances." It had seemed so sensible at the time, so loving. I sold the house Harold and I had built together, the home where Noah had grown up. I gave Noah and Elizabeth the money, $287,000 to invest. I never saw a statement, never questioned where the money went. I trusted them completely. I got out of bed and walked to the window, looking out at the elegant backyard with its swimming pool and professionally landscaped gardens. The down payment for this house had come from my money. The renovation that added the pool and outdoor kitchen, my money too, but the house was in their names, just like the vacation cabin in the mountains, which we'd bought using the last of Harold's life insurance for tax purposes. Elizabeth had explained, "It's simpler this way." I'd never questioned it. Why would I? They were family. I moved to the dresser and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out the old photo album I kept there. Pictures of Noah as a baby, a toddler, a gangly teenager, Noah at his college graduation, Noah and Elizabeth on their wedding day. I paused at a photo of all of us at Noah and Elizabeth's 10th anniversary party. Elizabeth stood slightly apart, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Had the signs been there all along? There were other memories too, small moments I'd dismissed at the time. Elizabeth's impatience when I was slow getting in and out of the car due to my arthritis, her sighs when I'd ask for help with technology, the way she'd schedule family gatherings when my bridge club met, then act disappointed when I chose to keep my commitment to my friends. "You know how important family is to Noah," she'd say, making me feel guilty for having any life outside of them. And there were the grandchildren. Ethan, 13, and Lily, 10, who I loved with all my heart. Elizabeth had always controlled my time with them, limiting visits, supervising our interactions, as if she didn't trust me alone with them. "The kids have their routines," she'd explain. "Too much excitement isn't good for them." I'd accepted it all, grateful to be included in their lives at all. What a fool I'd been. As dawn broke, I made another troubling realization. Over the past few months, as Noah's cancer progressed, Elizabeth had been unusually busy, often leaving Noah in my care while she attended to urgent business matters. She'd started dressing differently too, more stylish clothes, a new haircut, subtle makeup, even just to run errands. At the time, I'd thought maybe it was her way of maintaining normalcy in the face of Noah's illness. Now, I wondered if there was someone else. I remembered the text message I'd glimpsed on her phone 2 weeks ago when she'd asked me to find her charger. A message from someone named Ryan. "Can't wait to see you again. Last time was amazing." I'd told myself it must be a business associate. Elizabeth worked in real estate. She was always networking. But now, the pieces were falling into place. Elizabeth's business trips that often extended through weekends, the hushed phone calls behind closed doors, the new clothes, the subtle makeup. She'd been having an affair while my son was dying. The rage that filled me was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. How dare she? How dare she betray my son, plan to discard me, and probably take everything we'd worked for to start a new life with someone else. I was still sitting there, clutching the photo album, when there was a soft knock at my door. "Grandma." It was Ethan, my grandson. "Are you awake?" Mom said, "To tell you we're leaving for the lawyer's office in an hour." I took a deep breath, composing myself before opening the door. Ethan looked so much like Noah at that age. The same serious eyes, the same cowlick at the crown of his head. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'll be ready." He hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged me fiercely. "I miss Dad," he whispered. "I know, honey. I miss him, too." Over Ethan's shoulder, I saw Elizabeth appear. In the hallway, she smiled, that false saccharine smile, and said, "Don't bother Grandma too long. Ethan, she needs to get ready." Her eyes met mine, cold and calculating. "Today's an important day." "Yes," I thought, as I closed the door to dress. Today is indeed an important day. The day Elizabeth learns that her plans may not unfold exactly as she expects. Because during one of our last private conversations, when Noah was lucid and Elizabeth was out, he had gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Mom," he'd said, "I've been watching and listening. I've seen things, learned things. I need you to know I've made arrangements." I hadn't understood then, but I was beginning to now. The law office of Bradley and Associates occupied the entire top floor of a modest building downtown. As we filed into the conference room, I leaned heavily on my cane, the weight of grief and anxiety making each step laborious. Elizabeth walked ahead, her spine straight, her designer heels clicking confidently on the hardwood floor. She had dressed as if for a business meeting rather than for the reading of her husband's will. A sleek black pantsuit that spoke of efficiency rather than mourning. Ethan and Lily followed behind us, unnaturally subdued. I reached out to touch Lily's shoulder, and she pressed closer to me. At least they still wanted my comfort, despite whatever Elizabeth might have told them. Mr. Bradley, Noah's attorney for the past decade, greeted us with appropriate solemnity. He was a slight man, with wire-rimmed glasses and thinning gray hair, but his handshake was firm as he guided us to our seats. "Thank you all for coming," he began, shuffling papers before him. "I know this is a difficult time." Noah was very specific about his wishes, and it's my duty to make sure they're carried out exactly as he intended. Elizabeth nodded, her expression grave but composed. Under the table, I noticed her fingers tapping impatiently against her thigh. Before I begin the formal reading, I should mention that Noah made changes to his will approximately 6 weeks ago. Mr. Bradley said. Elizabeth's fingers stilled. Changes. What kind of changes? He never mentioned any changes to me. Mr. Bradley looked at her over his glasses. Yes, well, he came to see me privately. He was quite clear about his instructions. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Elizabeth's face. So brief, I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching for it. I see, she said, her voice slightly higher than normal. Well, proceed then. First, Mr. Bradley began, regarding the family residence at 1742 Maple Avenue and the vacation property at Lake Tahoe. I held my breath. These were the properties purchased with my money, the homes I had helped create but had no legal claim to. Both properties are to be placed in a family trust, with Olga Harrison named as trustee. The trust specifies that Olga has the right to live in either property for the remainder of her life. Upon her passing, both properties will transfer to Ethan and Lily Harrison to be shared equally. Elizabeth's face drained of color. That's impossible, she said, her voice tight. The houses are in my name. Noah can't just— Actually, Mr. Bradley interrupted gently. While the family home was indeed purchased in both your names, Noah transferred his interest in both properties to a trust 3 years ago. With your signature on the transfer documents, the Tahoe property was never in your name at all. Contrary to what you might have believed, it was purchased directly into the trust. I remembered signing papers 3 years back. Just routine estate planning, Noah had said. Elizabeth had been annoyed at the time, claiming it was unnecessary. Had Noah suspected even then? As for Noah's financial assets, Mr. Bradley continued, his retirement accounts, which amount to approximately $875,000, are to be divided as follows: 60% to a trust for Ethan and Lily's education and needs, with Olga named as trustee, 20% directly to Olga for her care and maintenance, and 20% to Elizabeth. Elizabeth's composure cracked. 20%. That's all. There must be some mistake. Her voice rose sharply. I'm his wife. There's no mistake. Mrs. Harrison, I drafted these documents myself at Noah's explicit instruction. When he was dying, Elizabeth stood up, her chair scraping back loudly. He wasn't in his right mind. He was on medication. This can be contested. Mr. Bradley's expression remained calm. Noah was perfectly lucid when he made these changes. I assessed his competence myself, and we had his doctor provide a written statement confirming his mental capacity. I would advise against contesting the will, Mrs. Harrison. It would be costly, time-consuming, and unlikely to succeed. Elizabeth looked around wildly, as if seeking an ally in her outrage. Her gaze landed on me, and the naked hatred in her eyes made me flinch. You, she hissed, you did this. You turned my husband against me. I said nothing, too stunned by these revelations to form words. Noah had protected me. Had he known all along what Elizabeth was planning? Mr. Bradley cleared his throat. There's more. Mrs. Harrison, Noah left a sealed letter to be read in the event that you contested any part of his will. He held up an envelope. Would you like me to read it now, or would you prefer to continue with the remaining provisions? Elizabeth sank back into her chair, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. Continue, she said through clenched teeth. The family business, Harrison Design Group, is to be placed in trust as well, with 75% ownership transferred to Ethan and Lily, to be managed by a board until they reach the age of 25. The remaining 25% is allocated to the company's current employees through a profit-sharing plan that Noah established last month. Elizabeth's hands were shaking now. And what exactly am I supposed to live on? Mr. Bradley adjusted his glasses. In addition to your share of the retirement accounts, Noah established a monthly allowance for you of $3,000 to continue for the period of 5 years, or until you remarry, whichever comes first. Remarry. Elizabeth's laugh was brittle. I just lost my husband. Yes, Mr. Bradley said, his tone neutral, but his eyes knowing. That's why I found his specific mention of remarriage interesting. The days following the reading of the will were like living in the eye of a hurricane. Elizabeth moved through the house with barely contained fury, slamming doors and speaking to me only when absolutely necessary. When she did address me, her voice dripped with venom. "This isn't over," she said the first night, cornering me in the kitchen. Noah was manipulated. He wasn't thinking clearly. I met her gaze steadily. Noah was protecting his family, his children, and his mother, as he should have. Her laugh was cruel. "Family. You think this is about family. This is about money. Olga, my money, the life I built with Noah that you're trying to steal." I never asked Noah to change his will. I said quietly. I didn't even know he had until yesterday. "Liar." She stepped closer, her finger jabbing the air, inches from my face. "You played the helpless old lady card, made him feel guilty. Well, I won't let you get away with it. I'm contesting the will," and she did. 3 days later, I was served with legal papers. Elizabeth had hired Winston Green, a high-powered attorney known for aggressive tactics in divorce and probate cases. The lawsuit claimed Noah had been unduly influenced and lacked testamentary capacity when he changed his will. I called Janet Peterson, my oldest friend and a retired judge, in tears. "Janet, I don't have money for attorneys. Everything I had went into those houses." "Don't worry," Janet said firmly. "I know exactly who you need." That's how I met Marion Chen, a formidable elder law attorney who took one look at my situation and agreed to represent me for a reduced fee, payable after the case was resolved. "This is elder abuse," Marion said bluntly during our first meeting. "Financial exploitation." Noah recognized what was happening and took steps to protect you. Now, we'll finish what he started. Elizabeth's first move was to try to force me out of the house while the case was pending. Marion blocked it with a temporary order. Her second strategy was to limit my access to the grandchildren. "They need stability right now," Elizabeth told the children's teachers and our neighbors. "Olga's mental state is concerning. She's making wild accusations, turning the children against me. It's elder paranoia, the doctors say." I hadn't seen any doctors, of course, but the whispers spread. Ethan and Lily came home from school asking strange questions. "Grandma, are you sick?" Lily asked one afternoon, her small face creased with worry. "Mom says you might have to go to a special hospital." My heart broke. "No, sweetheart, I'm not sick at all." "Then why is Mom saying those things?" Ethan demanded. At 13, he was old enough to sense the tension, to question the contradictions. I chose my words carefully. "Your mom and I have different ideas about what should happen now that your dad is gone, but we both love you very much." Elizabeth walked in at that moment, her eyes narrowing as she saw us together. "Kids, go do your homework," she ordered. After they reluctantly left, she turned to me. "Don't fill their heads with your version of events. I haven't told them anything," I said. She snorted in disbelief. "Just remember, no matter what that will says, I'm their mother. I decide what's best for them." The court battle dragged on. Elizabeth's attorney filed motion after motion, each one requiring a response, each one draining the trust's resources meant for the children's future. It was a war of attrition. She was betting I would give up rather than deplete their inheritance. Then came the day I found Elizabeth in Noah's home office, rifling through his desk. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped, then glared at me. "This is still my house. I can look through my husband's things if I want to." "You're searching for something specific," I observed. "What is it?" Elizabeth shoved the drawer closed. "None of your business." But I had seen enough. She'd been focusing on a section where Noah kept personal papers. What was she looking for? What was she afraid of? That night, after Elizabeth went out, with Ryan, I presumed, though she claimed it was a business dinner, I went into the office myself. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I felt Noah guiding me. In the bottom drawer, taped under a stack of old tax returns, I found a sealed envelope with my name on it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. "Mom, if you're reading this, things have gone as I feared. Elizabeth has shown her true colors. The evidence you need is on this drive. Financial records, emails, recordings of conversations. I started gathering it when I first became suspicious last year. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to protect you, and I needed time to secure everything legally before confronting her. Then the cancer came, and I ran out of time. Know that I love you and I'm grateful for everything you've done for us. Now, let this help you protect yourself and the kids. Noah. With shaking hands, I took the drive to my laptop and plugged it in. What I found stunned me. Dozens of documents, meticulously organized. Financial records showing how Elizabeth had gradually siphoned money from their joint accounts to a private one in her name only. Emails between Elizabeth and her lover, Ryan, dating back 2 years, discussing their plans for after Noah was out of the picture. Most damning were the recorded conversations, legal in our state, without two-party consent, where Elizabeth explicitly discussed putting me in a nursing home against my will and liquidating the family assets. Once the old bat is locked away and Noah's gone, we'll sell everything and move to Arizona like we planned. Elizabeth's voice said clearly in one recording. No one will question it. I sat in shock, tears streaming down my face as I realized the full extent of Noah's efforts to protect me. He had known all this time as he fought cancer. He had also been fighting to secure his children's future and my well-being. The next morning, I called Marion. I have something you need to see. I told her, something that changes everything. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, more intimate, which somehow made it more intimidating. I sat beside Marion, my back straight, despite the pain in my joints, my hands folded primly in my lap to hide their trembling. Across the aisle, Elizabeth sat with her attorney, Winston Green, a man whose reputation for ruthlessness was evident in the sharp cut of his suit and the cold calculation in his eyes. Elizabeth herself looked immaculate as always, dressed in a conservative navy dress that screamed grieving widow. She avoided looking at me directly. Judge Harriet Collins, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, studied the documents before her with intense concentration. The courtroom was mostly empty, except for a few spectators. Janet had come to support me, and surprisingly, Ethan sat in the back row. At 14, he wasn't required to attend, but he had insisted. Elizabeth had tried to prevent it, but the judge allowed it after Ethan himself requested to be present. This hearing is to address the petition to contest the will of Noah Harrison. Judge Collins began. I've reviewed the filings from both parties. Mrs. Elizabeth Harrison claims the deceased was not of sound mind when making his final amendments and was unduly influenced. Ms. Chen, you filed a counter-motion to dismiss the petition entirely. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Marion said, rising smoothly, and we've submitted new evidence that bears directly on this matter, which we believe renders the contest moot. Winston Green stood immediately. Your Honor, we object to this alleged new evidence. It was not part of the initial discovery. It was discovered only recently, Marion replied calmly, and we followed proper procedure to admit it. Judge Collins peered over her reading glasses. I'll allow it. Mr. Green, please continue. Ms. Chen, Marion nodded. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Harrison was engaged in a long-term extramarital affair during the deceased's illness, that she planned to institutionalize her mother-in-law against her will, and that she intended to liquidate family assets immediately after Mr. Harrison's death, assets that were intended for the care of his children and his mother. A murmur ran through the small courtroom. Elizabeth's face drained of color. Furthermore, Marion continued, we have evidence that Mrs. Harrison discussed these plans explicitly with her paramour, a Mr. Ryan Kendall, via email and recorded conversations, which Mr. Harrison legally obtained in this single-party consent state. This is absurd, Elizabeth burst out. Half rising from her seat, Winston Green put a restraining hand on her arm. Your Honor, he said smoothly, these are wild accusations with no bearing on the validity of the will. Even if such evidence existed, which we dispute, it would be inadmissible as it was obtained without my client's knowledge. Actually, Marion countered, the recordings were made by Mr. Harrison in his own home and office, where he had every legal right to record conversations. The emails were accessed from accounts Mr. Harrison legally had access to as they were on shared devices, and in some cases, joint accounts. Judge Collins held up a hand. I'll review the evidence in chambers to determine admissibility. For now, let's proceed with testimony. Ms. Chen, call your first witness. The defense calls Olga Harrison. Marion said. I rose shakily, made my way to the witness stand, and was sworn in. Marion guided me through gentle questions about my relationship with Noah, the financial arrangements after my husband's death, and my life in the family home. I spoke clearly, despite my nervousness, determined that Noah's efforts to protect me wouldn't be in vain. Then it was Winston Green's turn to cross-examine me. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he approached. Mrs. Harrison, isn't it true that you were financially dependent on your son? Yes, I answered honestly. After my husband died, I gave Noah and Elizabeth the proceeds from selling our house, and now that he's gone, you stand to gain control of significant assets that would otherwise go to his wife. Convenient, isn't it? Marion objected immediately. Argumentative. Your Honor, sustained, Judge Collins said. Mr. Green, confine yourself to questions, not insinuations. Green changed tactics. Mrs. Harrison, have you ever been diagnosed with dementia or memory issues? No, I said firmly, yet you claim to have been unaware of your son's changes to his will until after his death. Isn't it possible you're misremembering conversations with him during his illness? I met his gaze directly. My memory is perfectly clear. Mr. Green, Noah told me he had made arrangements, but he didn't share the details. He wanted to protect me from exactly this kind of confrontation. The questioning continued, Green trying to paint me as a confused old woman manipulating her dying son. But I remained steady, truthful, and clear. After I stepped down, Marion called her surprise witness, Ryan Kendall. Elizabeth gasped audibly as a tall, sandy-haired man in his mid-30s entered the courtroom. He avoided looking at her as he was sworn in. Mr. Kendall, Marion began. Could you please describe your relationship with Elizabeth Harrison? Ryan shifted uncomfortably. We've been involved for about 2 years. Involved how? Exactly. Romantically. Intimately. He swallowed hard. We met at a real estate conference. She told me her marriage was essentially over, that she was only staying until what? Mr. Kendall, until her husband died, he said quietly. She said it was just a matter of time, and then we could be together openly. Elizabeth's face contorted with fury. You traitor, she hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Judge Collins banged her gavel. Mrs. Harrison, control yourself, or I'll have you removed. Marion continued methodically, having Ryan confirm the existence of emails and recordings, their plans to move to Arizona, and Elizabeth's intentions regarding me and the family assets. By the time Winston Green began his cross-examination, the damage was done. Ryan's testimony had corroborated everything on Noah's USB drive. From the back of the courtroom, I could see Ethan's face, pale, shocked, his eyes filling with tears, as he learned the truth about his mother. My heart broke for him, even as I knew he needed to hear this. As the hearing concluded, Judge Collins announced she would review all evidence in chambers and issue her ruling the following week. But her expression, as she looked at Elizabeth, told me everything I needed to know. Noah had won, even from beyond. He had protected his family. 2 years have passed since that day in court. 2 years of healing, of rebuilding, of finding a new normal without Noah. The pain of losing him never truly fades, but it has softened around the edges, allowing space for joy to creep back in. Judge Collins ruled decisively in our favor, dismissing Elizabeth's petition to contest the will and upholding all of Noah's final arrangements. Elizabeth was furious. Of course, she ranted and threatened further legal action, but her attorney advised against it. The evidence was too damning. The judge too convinced. In the end, Elizabeth had no choice but to accept the ruling. She took her 20% of the retirement funds, nearly $175,000, and moved to Phoenix with Ryan. Last I heard, they had already broken up. Some relationships, it seems, aren't built to last. Beyond the thrill of secrecy and forbidden plans, she gave up custody of the children without much of a fight, surprising everyone except me. I had seen how she was with them, dutiful but distant, more concerned with appearances than with their emotional needs. When Ethan announced he wanted to live with me, Elizabeth barely protested. Lily was more torn, but eventually chose to join her brother rather than move across the country with a mother she no longer trusted. The first few months were the hardest. The children grieved not only their father, but also the mother they thought. They knew they had questions I couldn't always answer, pain I couldn't always soothe. We went to family therapy together, learning how to talk about the hard things, how to build trust again. "Why didn't Dad tell us about Mom?" Ethan asked one night, as we sat on the porch swing that had been Noah's favorite spot. "I think he was trying to protect you," I said carefully. "He wanted to confront her, to fix things. But then he got sick. After that, his priority was making sure you would be taken care of. He saved us." Ethan said simply, "He saved you too." "Grandma," I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. "Yes, he did. We live in the family home now, the three of us. I've taken the master bedroom, something Elizabeth fought bitterly over, though it was specifically outlined in Noah's will. I've redecorated. It's simply removing the expensive furnishings Elizabeth had chosen and replacing them with comfortable pieces that feel like me." The Harrison Design Group continues to thrive under the management board Noah established. They frequently turn to me for guidance, value my insights, and ensure that the children understand the heritage they will one day inherit. Over the past couple of years, I've unearthed an unexpected treasure trove of insights into architecture and design that I never imagined I would acquire at this point in my journey. Lily, just 12 years old, is starting to showcase her extraordinary talent for design. She pours her heart into sketching buildings and interiors, excitedly revealing her imaginative visions to me. She often expresses how much Dad would have loved this, and I wholeheartedly concur. Noah lives on through her creativity, in Ethan's gentle spirit, and in the myriad of small moments that unexpectedly warm my heart and bring a smile, even through the sorrow. Ethan, at 16, holds himself with a gravity that echoes his father's presence. He's already sharing his dreams of pursuing business and architecture in college, imagining a future where he steps into the role of leading the family company. Not long ago, he confided in me about his wish to bring pride to our father. I assured him that he had indeed fulfilled that promise. Every day, we gather at the Tahoe cabin, celebrating holidays and summer weeks, crafting new traditions that enrich the tapestry of our beloved memories. Last Christmas, we had the pleasure of inviting Janet and her family to join in our celebration. The house was filled with warmth and a sense of belonging. Noah would have held it dear to his heart. Elizabeth extends her hand to the children. On special occasions, her tone masked a facade of cheerfulness. The conversations are brief, filled with tension. She has yet to make any moves to visit, despite having the legal right to do so. The children seem to experience a feeling of relief instead of disappointment regarding her absence. In my journey, I've found an unexpected freedom in living as a widow and cherishing the delights of being a grandparent. I've joined a book club, taken up watercolor painting, and started a relationship with a kind widower named Frank, whom I met at a community garden. Nothing serious yet, but it's invigorating to enjoy coffee with someone who brings joy, who sees me and acknowledges a woman, not just a grieving mother or a dedicated grandmother. There are times when I yearn for Noah to experience our path, to witness the healing we've embraced and the resilience we've forged through our challenges. Still, I can't help but ponder if perhaps he genuinely has that ability. Perhaps he realized from the outset that we would navigate our path, that the foundations he laid would provide us with not just security, but also the chance to create a true family, bonded by affection and purpose rather than obligation. There are times when I catch myself talking to him, particularly when I'm alone. I confide in him about the milestones the children have achieved, the triumphs of the business, and the peaceful joy I've found in this life he has protected for me. I speak gently, my fingertips gliding over the picture of him that sits by my bedside, a testament to the pride I carry for him. You truly excelled. My dear, yesterday was the anniversary of Noah's departure. As we approached his resting place, We formed a close-knit trio, bearing bright flowers and reflecting on treasured memories. As we walked back to the car, Ethan tenderly wrapped his arm around my shoulders. "Can you think of something that would genuinely bring joy to Dad?" He expressed that we've found our joy again and have mapped out a journey forward. Lily nodded, her heart weighed down, recognizing that Elizabeth had finally gotten what she deserved. I smiled at my grandchildren, these perceptive young souls who had encountered many obstacles, yet still radiated warmth and kindness. "It seems that both of you present compelling arguments." Last night, as I settled into bed, I thought deeply about the significant changes my life had experienced since that pivotal day at Noah's funeral, a day steeped in fear and ambiguity. Instead of facing the loneliness of a nursing home, I found myself embraced by a loving family, in a home that truly felt like mine, adorned with reminders of my son's love. I remembered Elizabeth's biting remarks, spoken in a fleeting moment, when she thought no one of importance was paying attention. Finally, I can leave that burdensome weight in the past. The irony was impossible to overlook. In the end, it was Elizabeth who found herself collecting her things and bidding farewell. Noah had made certain that his last act of love protected those who truly deserved it. As I drifted into the gentle embrace of slumber, a soft smile curled upon my lips. It's frequently expressed that the ultimate form of retribution is to embrace and thrive in your own life. If that's the case, then this peaceful, joyful life, this restoration of what was broken, is the greatest victory of all.